Good morning. Welcome to a discussion on the next pharma boom. Demand is exploding, but can supply keep up? The global healthcare industry may be entering a period of demand expansion unlike anything it has experienced in decades. Demand is rising simultaneously across multiple therapeutic areas and increasingly technology driven models of care, from obesity therapies and oncology to precision medicine, advanced biologics, and AI enabled diagnostics. At the same time, expectations around healthcare itself are evolving rapidly. Care is becoming more personalized, more preventive, more data driven, and increasingly interconnected at a global level. Together, these shifts are creating powerful new momentum for the pharmaceutical and biotechnology innovation. They are also introducing a far more complex operational challenge. As healthcare demand grows in scale, complexity, and speed, the industry is being forced to rethink how therapies are discovered, manufactured, regulated, and delivered across increasingly sophisticated healthcare ecosystems. And that may ultimately define the next phase of pharma and biotech transformation. The central question is no longer limited to whether innovation can continue. Increasingly, the larger challenge may be whether the global healthcare ecosystem can scale innovation fast enough, intelligently enough, and sustainably enough to keep pace with the demand emerging around it. Now, why this moment is different? What makes this moment especially consequential for the industry is that the pressure is not being created by a single trend or a single therapeutic breakthrough. Multiple long term demand drivers are now converging simultaneously across the healthcare ecosystem. If we were to take a look at the demand expansion cycle, the first driver would be the demographic and chronic disease pressure driver. So, part of this expansion, we can say that it is demographic and epidemiological in nature, per a United Nations report on aging. Virtually every country in the world is experiencing growth in the number and proportion of older persons in their population. And this implies increase in the long-term burden of chronic disease and care. Not to forget the fact that obesity and metabolic disorders are reshaping healthcare demand at a global level. What was once viewed primarily as a lifestyle concern is now increasingly being treated as a large-scale clinical and economic challenge with implications across diabetes, cardiovascular disease, liver disorders, and preventive healthcare itself. This is one of the reasons areas such as GLP-1 therapies have generated such extraordinary momentum across the pharmaceutical industry. Cancer burden is also continuing to rise globally, driven not only by aging populations but also by improved screening, early diagnosis, and expanding access to care across emerging healthcare systems. Taken together, these demographic and epidemiological shifts are creating sustained long-term demand across multiple therapeutic categories, simultaneously increasing both the scale and complexity of future healthcare delivery. The second cluster that I consider is, of course, the technology-driven healthcare expansion. So technology is beginning to expand healthcare demand in fundamentally new ways. Advances in AI-enabled diagnostics, precision medicine, and predictive analytics are improving the industry's ability to identify disease earlier, interpret complex clinical data more effectively, and personalize treatment pathways at an increasingly individual level. In many areas of healthcare, diagnosis is becoming faster, more data-rich, and potentially more accessible. AI-assisted diagnostic systems are beginning to support interpretation across imaging, pathology, cardiac monitoring, and other areas where where specialist expertise has been traditionally difficult to scale. At the same time, precision medicine and genomics are gradually shifting healthcare away from generalized models towards therapies that are increasingly tailored to individual biological profiles, disease characteristics, lifestyle factors, and genetic variation. Surgical innovation is also evolving rapidly. Robotics assisted procedures and minimally invasive approaches are improving procedural precision, shortening recovery timelines, and expanding the possibilities of advanced intervention across areas such as oncology and soft tissue surgery. Together, these developments are not only transforming healthcare capability, they are also expanding the scale, complexity, and continuity of healthcare demand itself. The third important cluster would be the behavioral health transformation that's taking place. So, healthcare expectations are evolving at a behavioral and consumer level. Across many healthcare systems, care is gradually shifting from reactive treatment towards prevention, continuous monitoring, and long term health optimization. Patients are becoming more informed, more digitally engaged, and increasingly accustomed to personalized healthcare experiences that extend beyond traditional clinical settings. Digital health platforms, wearable technologies, app based ecosystems, and connected models of care are beginning to reshape how individuals interact with healthcare on a day to day basis, influencing everything from monitoring and diagnostics to treatment adherence and patient engagement. Interest in longevity and healthy aging is also becoming more visible across technology, healthcare, and investment ecosystems. The growing intersection between AI and longevity research reflects a broader shift in healthcare thinking from managing disease after it emerges towards optimizing long term health outcomes and extending health span itself. Even technology leaders such as OpenAI CEO Sam Altman have invested in companies exploring AI enabled biological research and longevity science, signaling how seriously parts of the broader innovation ecosystem are beginning to view this space. Together, these behavioral and consumer shifts are contributing to a healthcare environment that is becoming more continuous, more personalized, and increasingly integrated into everyday life. Remember, one of my bosses always used to say that her area is personalization and modularization. I remember her now even more. Let's see how the industry is responding. One of the clearest consequences of this expanding healthcare environment is that the traditional operating model of pharma is beginning to evolve across research, manufacturing, regulation, and supply infrastructure. The industry is being forced to adapt to a healthcare ecosystem that is becoming faster, more data intensive, and significantly more complex. AI, for example, is increasingly being integrated into drug discovery and clinical development as companies are looking for ways to accelerate research timelines, target identification, and manage growing scientific complexity more efficiently. At the same time, manufacturing itself is becoming a far more strategic capability. Areas such as advanced biologics, precision medicine, and obesity therapies are placing growing pressure on production infrastructure, specialized facilities, and scalable delivery systems. This challenge becomes even more visible in cell and gene therapy, where scientific innovation is advancing rapidly, but large scale manufacturing, logistics, and global delivery infrastructure are still evolving. Beyond manufacturing, the broader healthcare ecosystem is also adapting operationally. Supply chains are being diversified for greater resilience. Regulatory systems, the FDA for instance, with its ELSA, they are modernizing their digital capabilities. and healthcare organizations are becoming increasingly dependent on advanced data infrastructure and specialized talent across AI, biologics, and regulatory science. And all of this is unfolding within an environment of rising cost pressure and long term sustainability concerns. Because the future challenge for pharma may no longer be innovation alone. Increasingly, it may be the ability to scale innovation sustainably across highly interconnected global healthcare ecosystems. Taken together, these shifts suggest that the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry is entering a far more connected phase of evolution. Demographic pressure, AI enabled healthcare, precision medicine, biologics, digital infrastructure, patient expectations, and operational scalability are no longer developing independently of one another. Increasingly, they are converging into a healthcare system that is becoming larger, more continuous, more data intensive, and significantly more complex. As a result, the industry's long term trajectory may be shaped not only by the pace of scientific progress but by how effectively healthcare systems are able to translate innovation into scalable real world delivery. And that transformation extends far beyond research alone. It touches manufacturing, supply chains, regulation, data infrastructure, talent, affordability, and the broader architecture through which modern healthcare increasingly operates. In many ways, the next phase of healthcare transformation may ultimately be defined by the industry's ability to sustain innovation across highly interconnected global ecosystems operating at an unprecedented scale. Thank you. Thanks so much.